Imagine you went to a college campus where you had a professor whose views stand out differently than the views of a lot of that the counterparts of that particular professor. I'm going to use the pronoun she and her, though I normally do not subscribe to pronouns. My bad if that offends anyone, I apologize. Now, imagine for more than a decade a professor whose classes you had to take. This is before she was sanctioned from teaching required courses. You found out that she went around saying that blacks have bad academic performance and are the protected group, and that's why they get by with things. We'll get into that about us FBAs in a little bit, because by black, to be honest, it is a euphemism for us foundational black Americans, not you African or Caribbean people or from other parts of the diaspora that come to the United States. We here understand what she means. Imagine her saying that we should curb Asian immigration, and saying this loud enough for years for people to hear, whilst Asian students are on that campus. And imagine her saying loud enough, being careful about Mexican men, because that group of men in particular assault women. And even saying gay people aren't fit to be parents. Whether you agree or disagree with anything this professor said, let me get into something, okay? The worst part of this is that throughout the years, it had been known that she had invited known white supremacists to her diverse classrooms to speak to students, okay? Here's the thing about this. Again, I'm going to take this in a direction that people may get upset with me, but I need you to hear me out. And before I start, let me say, as the articles start to pop up, I'm not rationalizing anything this woman said. You cannot in no way, form, or fashion walk into a diverse workplace full of people of different races and spew the crap you're spewing, because you reasonably knew, since you'd been on that campus since 2001, that you were going to have to deal with people who don't look, act, and think like you. So don't misunderstand me. I'm not going to condone anything this woman said. And it doesn't matter what you do or don't believe in, because even some people listening to me will say some of what she said is true, or will find some truth in it. Okay. And I need to give that disclaimer. Her lawyer makes an excellent point about college campuses being ultra liberal, where you have to pretend to accept people and accept their views, even when it goes against what you believe and who you are. If college is a place of learning, shouldn't you be able to have varying and different opinions? I would say yes, even if those opinions are conservative. Because conservatives are people who are labeled as conservative as a whole are now having huge issues on campus. And in the modern climate we live in, conservative is not always euphemism for white. Okay. And the thing about it is that we are now scared to listen to different opinions, even when those opinions might offend us. Are you entitled to be protected from your offense? That's something we all have to deal with. Now I'm going to go into my rant, and please understand, if you are one of my white listeners, that this is not indicative of the entire white race, but I'm going to go in on her, okay? She's also made open comments that United States would be a better nation if it were all white. And I'll get to that probably in the end if I remember, because there's so much to unpack here. I'm going to break down first why she went after black people and why she went after Asians, and then I'll wrap this up. Let's be honest, as a person of myself who grew up in the ghetto, okay? There's a issue a lot with reading, writing, and arithmetic within our communities, okay? There are issues with academic standards within the foundational Black American community, things we need to deal with as a community. We even have students who are making it their life mission to teach other young black kids how to read, because there is an epidemic in our communities of black kids not being able to read. So it is possible that some of the standards are lacking within our communities. Okay? My issue with where she took her discrimination is that she generalized all black kids, because we know some, although we don't like to admit it, like Nigerians who bring their children over and other ethnic groups have stronger family bonds because we have a lot of fatherless homes. Were you discriminating against those households? And what about the foundational Black Americans who really did earn their way into those schools? Because you can say all this crap about affirmative action all you want. I'll take me, for example. The University of Washington was not an easy school to get into, but by the time I got in 2010, the state of Washington had already abolished affirmative action. So by your account, you're doing a broad sweep that affirmative action got everybody in. How do you know that? And if you judge that black kid by the color of their skin, how do you know some didn't have large SAT scores? Because being black doesn't automatically make you dumb. It just does not. I don't care. Being a foundational Black American, because this is who she was really attacking. Okay. When you read between the lines, the protected group. What she meant to say was the protected group in the United States. Because if you go and look up a lot of Black American kids, specifically the ones who are now homeschooled, when you go research the stories, these kids can often speak more than one language, are very math proficient, and have very much high reading and testing standards. The issue is you could be discriminating against them based on their skin color, and they fit the criterion to be in your classes. Black doesn't equal you can't read and you don't fit the standards every single time. Now let's discuss secondly what she said about the Asian community. She said we need to curb Asian immigration, and some stats are gonna pop up. It's not hard to see why, because the euphemism she was using here is that I feel that Asians can keep up with their white population is gonna take over. Tell me I'm lying. Because very few people wouldn't realize that the Asian community are close knit and have those family associations and do well academically. So what she's subliminally saying is, why should white people have to compete with this group? See, the issue with curb Asian immigration that I found disturbing is that she only discussed Asian immigrants and not Asian Americans. So then here's my question. When Asians were walking into her classroom, was she automatically assuming that they were all immigrants? Was she assuming that by virtue of the fact that they came over later on post-slavery, that they were never completely included in what it means to be American? Because the reason she wants to curb this immigration isn't hard for me to understand. And what of the international students that come from Asian countries that got into these schools the right way? Those students are the reason your tuition gets paid, no different than the Nigerian or the Ghanaian or anyone from Latin America. Their tuition helps pay your salary. So who are you to say they can't come over here? See, when I read this article, it was not that hard to figure out why she went after Black Americans, because that's who she's really talking about, and why she went after Asians in general. Because there are now studies to show that when a large amount of Asians move into predominantly white neighborhoods, some of the white people are now also leaving. Sounds familiar? Again, I told you all, if you're one of my Caucasian listeners, I know all of you don't think this way. This is not me attacking the entire white race, because I don't cluster any general person in any race. This is why, even as a foundational Black American, I went after the reading, writing, and arithmetic standards. Because it is true, I've grown up with people who could not spell their own name on a piece of paper from the ghetto. So I know that to be true. I also know that I was raised in a house with both a single mother and a single father that insisted on seeing my report card and insisting that I had high reading standards. No matter what, some people are going to want to stick within their own group. Okay? And some people are going to want to stay within their own. But let's have a honest discussion with the picture that's about to pop up. The United States, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, because I'm not, I don't believe in superior and inferior races. The United States was never, in its inception, what we call the United States, truly a white country, okay? We are a country filled with different races, some who were here before us, picture on the screen, some who were brought forcefully, which were my ancestors, some that came because of famine, the Irish and other Europeans, some came because of ethnic cleansing on the continent of Europe, i.e. people of Jewish heritage. Okay. The United States was never just a white country, okay? White people for the longest time were the majority, and to a degree that's not going to taper off anytime soon. But where I'm going to go with this woman before I close is this. Me, if you're asking me as a foundational Black American, I have no problem with the fact that she feels that way. If she wanted to go on white supremacist websites like Vox Front, I don't care. What you do outside of your job, outside of the physical workplace, has no bearing on me, because when I go home, even if whether you're black, white, gay, straight, whatever you identify as, when I go home, I'm going to be with my family and not think about you and not think about your negativity. The fact that she's a white conservative that thinks America should be a white majority, okay, that's her opinion. The fact that she interacts with white supremacists, okay, that's who she is. It became an issue to me when you decided to teach on a campus of people with different races. I said graces, my bad. Races and immigrant backgrounds, and you brought your message to work. That you feel that way, in my opinion, I don't care about. What I care about is that because you feel the way you feel, it could affect people academically who don't fit your stereotypes. So what you're advertising is all I have to do is know your background based on your skin color, and I can judge you that way. You can't bring elements and aspects of your personal life to work all of the time. You being conservative was not the issue. You putting people in your finely tuned boxes and saying who should and who shouldn't in classrooms where you have students who paid international tuition and who worked hard to get into these schools. You're targeting the black students by saying that if they got there, they automatically didn't work for it. Your ideal that you have to be careful of Mexican men because they might assault women. And your ideal that we need to curb Asian immigration when it's clear that immigration issue in the United States is more than just that group. And you said these things at work, on campus, on your work hours, is disturbing. See, subliminals speak for themselves, especially the picture on the screen. See, you can't tell a group of people to get out of a country that they were in before your ancestors got here. And you talk about us at FBAs as a protected group, but I noticed you didn't tell us to go back to Africa either, did you? And you know why you didn't. And see, Asians were originally allowed in to a small degree because they were supposed to take the jobs that blacks had left after the Emancipation Proclamation. And heaven forbid someone else comes and competes with you. And the thing you miss the most is that not everybody within your own race feels the same way you do about different races of people. So by curb immigration, do you mean Europeans who also had a right to come over here because they earned their spot in the schools? And to think a year from now, this woman will be back on campus teaching people. And somebody gonna sit in her classroom wondering, I'm from Croatia and I'm an immigrant. Is she gonna fail me? I'm a Mexican guy. Does she think that I'm going to attack and assault her just because I'm Mexican? I'm black. Does she think I'm dumb? I'm Asian American, born and raised here. Does she think that I'm not American enough? It's insidious, isn't it? And I re-emphasize before I close, this is not all people who are Caucasian. I don't think all white people are this way. But people like this, who force their views down people's throats, their insidious views, and can't leave their private life at home, should not be teaching in a classroom.